I know Senator Murphy had to run off and do something for a minute, and I'm not sure about Senator Sullivan yet. Huh? She's walking over now. Okay. Kevin, I saw you took off early last night. What was that all about? You didn't hang out with the rest of us. 11:15. Yeah, 11:15. I was in my office. Go home, get a good night's sleep, and then come back to watch us sleep-deprived senators. So the Rosenwald are nodding off, and I are nodding off. You'll understand why. Huh? Yeah, the number one topic was, because I was keeping a tally sheet as people were talking about stuff. The number one discussion point was a 3% Medicaid reduction.
Yeah, plus mental health
And then-
cuts, the DD cuts.
Yeah, DD cuts were right behind it. Mental health was right behind that.
Funding.
That was the top three discussion points. I'm going to blame it all on Cindy anyway. It's not my fault, and I'm not going to explain why it's her fault either. I'm just going to say it's her fault.
You're gonna make us-
We'll get an open committee on Ways and Means, and I asked Senator Sullivan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we're here today to discuss revenues and what's going on with revenues. Our goal by the end of this session will be to have predictions we'll be able to give the Finance Committee so they can start preparing their budget and doing the work after the public hearing last night. Is there any opening statements anybody wants to make first? So again, I think that the issue is going to be where we think the economy is going, and based on the things we heard, whether we're optimistic, pessimistic, or neutral on revenues, is going to define kind of where our conversation goes. You'll see in front of you a piece of paper. I'm trying to find it so I can show it to you. What do I do with it? This one right here. It has several columns. This was the latest update I got from a meeting with the governor's office on revenues. You'll see a DRA. They gave us the midpoint and the high point of what DRA thinks for these topics. I'd like to start with these revenues first because they make up the vast majority of the budget. Is there any objection to that? So one
Question, why does it not
The-
include DRA low?
DRA chose not to put it on the sheet. This was provided by the DRA to the governor's office, and that's the way they chose to do it.
Okay, because we have
We also have the
DRA low from the previous worksheets.
So the first thing we actually have to start off with is setting the 25 numbers, even though that year's finalizing in July. We have to run through and set the 25 numbers. What I think we'll do is we'll just go through 25, 26, 27, and then move to the next text, go through 25, 26, 27, if that's okay. So we'll start with the business taxes for 2025. We have to have a Senate Ways and Means estimate for that number. The House came in at 1.03 billion. The agency's estimates are 1.63 billion, or versus a high of, oh, actually, if I look, it's not that 25 cent over there. A high of 1.102 billion. Does anybody have any comments or suggestions on that?
Mr. Chairman. looking at the business profit stacks and hearing from various agencies, I'm more on the low end of what the agency is saying. I think with the uncertainty of the economy, consumer demand, tariffs, things like that, and a relatively small amount of businesses driving this business profit stacks, I would be more comfortable on the lower end of this.
So I'll be honest with you, again, I asked everybody to kind of look at the numbers and tell me what they think. The number I plugged in for this is 1.075. It's slightly above the agency's low estimate, but it's also below the high estimate. So it's kind of shooting for the middle, which I think was where we're going to end up this year when we're all done with taxes. So how does everybody feel about using that number, 1075 for that number? Senator Roosevelt?
Thank you. I'm more toward the low. I think we know that the economy shrunk in the first quarter. Consumer confidence has slipped. There's going to be supply chain disruptions within the next 2 months. And I think from everything I've been reading, the chances of contraction again in the second quarter are higher. So I'd be uncomfortable with going above the agency low because it's always easier to add money in the second year than it is to have the governor have to cut spending in the second year, which probably should have happened last year, but didn't. And here we are with a deficit for this biennium.
Maybe over here. Keith or Victoria, comment?
Mr. Chairman, I would concur that it's better to be conservative than overly optimistic. And I have concerns about the economy. I'm in business. I hear what my customers say. I know what my vendors say. And no one out there has any degree of optimism for the economy at large. So I tend to trend towards lower numbers myself. I would be comfortable with 1070.
1070?
1.7.
That's actually 1.07.
Yeah,
Right.
I'd
That's
compromise.
Thank you.
I'd compromise on that.
1.07, so it's almost.
So 1070 would be the number. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And that'll be a number. So moving down to 26, again, you have the sheet that was the most recently updated one as a midpoint and a high point from DRA for business taxes. DRA's midpoint is, so the low point on the estimate was 1085. The House did 1060. The high end from the governor, from the latest numbers is 1224 for business taxes for 26. So I will say that I kind of split the difference. I think that the first 6 months of the budget cycle, so from June to December, still going to be chugging along, but it's not going to be. We're not going to see any significant improvement in the economy, but we will see improvement, just not at the rate we're used to seeing. We know that there are some things that are happening or planned to happen in the economy. One of the things I talked about before is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is looking at lowering its interest rates, which generally tend to spur growth in business as interest rates to borrow money come down. They borrow money for capital projects and improvements and growth. The other piece that is a big in play here is inflation and what's going on with inflation. According to, I never thought that I would be reading Morningstar financial news, but having read that, my takeaway from it was when it comes to inflation, that they expect to see continual decline until from now until the end of 2026, where they'll finally hit the target range of the Fed around 2%. So I think as we see inflation coming down, the Fed rate interest rates coming down, I tend to be a little more optimistic again, but still landing in the middle of where the numbers are versus on the high end or the dead low end. We heard that from DRA that, if I remember, the percentage was 2 to 8%, which gives us a broad range of what we think the economy is going to do. So I will say that my number for 26 was 1150, which is just below the DRA's midpoint for the first year. Comment.
Yes, thank you. I think you're more optimistic for 26 than I am. I think the chances of recession are higher now than they were 6 months ago. And I don't think we know yet where the trade wars are going. I'm more confident about 27 than I am about 26, but I'm really low end still on 26.
Further discussion?
I think there's extreme uncertainty. And I appreciate your number being kind of somewhere in that middle. I respect everything you're doing. I think there's uncertainty in national markets. I think, as Senator Murphy said, we're both business owners. We see the uncertainty firsthand drastically, not only in consumer demand, but also in employees, the markets, things like that. I would be more comfortable in the lower end. And I'm not even sure if I share my optimism for 2027 quite yet. But, I think maybe we can get to a yes. We're a little lower than that 1150.
I would concur with my colleague. I am always frugal, and I would always rather be surprised to have more money in the bank than less. And I think with so much uncertainty right now, that's a reasonable position.
I just want to do some
Can I
math
ask
for a
you a
second.
question?
Go ahead.
What percentage increase does your
I was just
1150?
looking that up. Give me 1 second. I can't remember how I got there. I was on the upper end of the, if you do it as a percentage over 25 versus using her actual numbers, I was up around the 6.5% range.
Versus,
But that's based on that. That's not using her numbers. Like her numbers are assuming 1085. The range is 1085 to 1224, right? With our latest update. So her midpoint was 1153, and I'm below the midpoint. So that must be roughly, based on her new numbers, around a 4% increase. Split the difference between her 2 and 8, and my number was around a 4% increase
Would
from her range.
1095 satisfy the committee?
I had 1100 myself.
Yeah.
So we're not far off. We're not off by much.
Well, let's meet in the middle, 1097.
oh, that
Yeah,
was
but I'm
quick.
at one. I'm at
I will not buy a
1150.
car for you anytime soon.
But I'm at 1150. So I'm a much higher number than that.
I'd support 11.
Huh?
I'd support 11. That's a compromise between the two of you.
What was that number? 11.
1.1.
1100.
11, yeah.
Yeah,
11. I could bend a little.
I could go for 1100.
What's 2.5 million?
Well, but it's not. Again, remember, I'm at 1150. So, guys, I'm in this conversation. Again, I do think the economy is going to be improving. I think, again, we have not seen a recession. We're just seeing a slowing of growth, right? And so, the idea that that the growth, whether you either agree that growth is can continue to be slow or it's going to accelerate, right? Or it's going to decline. Right? I don't think it's going to decline, in my opinion. Everything the Fed's doing, everything that's happening in inflation, in my conversations with businesses looking forward, not to right now in the present tense, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. But the business I'm talking to are looking forward to saying they're feeling optimistic that with the actions of the Fed, the fact that they're going to have money, the cost of money, for lack of a better phrase, is going to be lower, that will allow them to do the growth things they've been holding off on due to the 7% inflation rate we had last summer, that they put all these projects on pause. And the conversations I'm having with businesses, they're saying that those projects are more likely to move forward as the cost of money comes down. And that's why I'm more optimistic on the economy.
If I may, I know what you're saying. You know, I'm suggesting 40 million over the House Ways and Means estimate. And you know, I was here in 2010 when we came in and found a really big hole. And I just do not want to be in that position 2 years from now where we have to find a way to fill a $900 million deficit. And so it may be that I've been burned before when I sat on House Ways and Means. It's just it's a lot harder to fill a hole than it is just to not get into one in the first place. And I'd rather be in a position of, you know, what do we do with this surplus money than trying to dig out of a hole, you know, next year or the year after. So that's why I think I probably am being a bit more conservative than you, Mr. Chairman, just you know. For that.
All right, so the number looks like it's going to fall in on 1,100. All those in favor of 1,100 say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And moving on to 27. The House at 1102, we're slightly under that from last year's number. The agency estimates 1106 to 1286. My number's going to be way off because I based mine on my 1150 number and where we're going to grow from that. So I'll let you guys talk on where you think you want to go.
Good.
So I'm more optimistic about 27 because I don't know why, because why else get out of bed in the morning? But if we're looking at percentage growth rates and agency has between 2 and 8, I might be able to be talked into halfway between those for 27 on top of 26. But I don't think we're going to be blowing the doors off because we saw how long it took to get the supply chains back under control after the lockdowns. And if prices go up, if unemployment goes up, I'm not feeling rosy, but I'm feeling more optimistic about 2 years from now.
I'll tell you, my number was 1185. I only went up 35 million from the previous year. But I was at 1150 before. You guys are now talking 1185 would be an $85 million lift from the previous year. Whether you think that's still within the gap range, the high-low gap range for the agency was 1106 to 1322. So it was a $200 million gap in their latest numbers to their lowest numbers. So how does everyone?
I'm actually okay with 185. I think that's
You're okay with 1195?
1185.
85.
1185. That's a little bit higher than the number I had, but I can bend here. I mean, I had 1150.
That's what sort of what I was thinking. I thought 1150.
So we'll start with 1185, the number we started with. There seems to be a general, even though it might be a little reluctant, but a consensus. So all those in favor of 1185, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
So 1185 will be our number for business tax totals. Moving on, the rooms and meals tax. So we have to deal with 2025. The House had, sorry, I'm gonna get the right thing here. So the House projection was 348.5. The agency's gap is 331.6 and 357.7.
Mr. Chair, I think you're looking at 26 numbers. You
Oh,
did it
sorry.
at 25.
Back, sorry, 25. 336.4 was the governor's estimate. The House number was 333.9. The agencies were 333.8. Their high estimate's lower, 336 point. So where do you guys want to fall in 2025? I'm assuming you're going to start with 33 and figure out what the last number is.
I suggested 334. I think the house is pretty much probably on the money. They're at 339.
Yeah, I also, I had 335.5 is where I was, on that number, understanding that rooms and meals tax is doing pretty good, right? That's one of our bright spots in our budget. So I had 335.5 is what my number was. Kind of split the difference between the high and low of the agency.
335.5.
Yep.
And Senator Murphy, what did you have?
I had 334, which was slightly higher than House Ways and Means, but not dramatically higher. So, you want to go 334.5?
Sure. All those in favor of 334.5, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to 2026. The House estimate was 348.5. The agency estimate was 335.5 to 352.275. I will tell you, I fell in the middle. I was at 343, which is, basically about halfway between the high and low. And again, knowing that the predictions that the DNCR, which does tourism, is about 3% to 4% growth over whatever, for next year. And that kind of plays out to the conversations I've had with the hospitality industry, is that they're not seeing declines in bookings when it comes to hotels, which has a direct correlation to our rooms and meals tax.
So the number you had, Mr. Chairman?
343.
We're not off by much. I had 341. So
We did, thank you. We did hear from the association that people are spending more buying cheaper hotel rooms. So I'd probably be more comfortable with Senator Murphy's number. It's not really different. But again, I'm just really cautious. And I'd like to have money left over, especially since the budget as presented to us wipes out half the rainy day fund and doesn't put it all back. I'd like to be able to.
So Keith, what was your number, 342?
341 was my number.
341.
I
We'll split the
agree.
difference to 342 and call it even.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it. I'm more concerned about, consumer fatigue and economic pressure that we talked about. I think households may pull back on some of that discretionary spending. So I'd rather.
So one of the things I won't say encouraged by, or at least was an interesting talking point I hadn't considered, was the reduction in Canadian travel and the fact that more people are going to do staycations and stay in the state and travel within the state kind of idea. And it's one of the reasons why I'm okay with the number I picked of it going up rather than staying stagnant, being concerned about international travel. I don't think that's going to have as much play because I think we'll have more regional travel, people staying in New England. All right, 342. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. 342 is the number. Moving on to 2027 rooms and meals tax. The agency's difference was 349.86, and then their high number was 370.44. The House was at 361. I'll be honest, I came in at 365, is where I landed.
Well, that's a big jump.
Well, not from 342, right? So again, it's a $20 million jump on a $300 million revenue stream.
I'm more closer to a 350. I'm still, I would call it pessimistic, but if a bad ski season and a rainy summer can affect us a lot of times, especially with those staycation issues. And I would just rather be more cautious in our approach to this.
So you're at 350?
Yeah.
So
I have to confess that was my number as well.
any other discussion on this number? 350 being the number. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. 350 is the number for rooms and meals. Moving on to the tobacco tax, which is on your sheet. It should be the next number C. For 25, the House had 21140. The agency was much more pessimistic. They're at 183.3 to 183.9. I'll be honest, I split the difference with the agency and was on the low side. I went 383.5.
One more time, Mr. Chair, what was your
So
number?
my number is 383.5, which is basically the difference between the agencies 383.3 and 383.9. Right.
On the tobacco tax?
Hold on, am I on the right?
Is that for the biennium or?
No, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong, sorry, I'm reading the wrong column.
Yeah, because.
180.
183.9, 183.3. Would be better was would be better was the other way.
Jeez.
183.3 versus 183.9. I was at 183.5. I split the difference with the agency. I felt that was reasonable. Remember, we did pass a bill that's going to affect the vape tax and the enforcement and collection of the vape tax. So I think, again, that's why I split the difference. I think we're going to be in a good position when that law goes into effect.
I'm okay with that.
So Roosevelt?
I'm okay with that because I think if we don't see further reduction in untreated addictions and mental illness, we know there's correlation between that and smoking. And so I'd be okay with your number.
Further discussion? Everybody okay? Vote on 183.5 for the number for 2025 tobacco tax. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. That will be the new number. Next coming up is the 26 prediction. The agency is between 174.3 and 178.4. I'll be honest with you, I was on the high end on this one, only because of the new law we're putting in where we're going to go after the vape tax. And I'm more likely that I think we're going to hit that the higher number. But I'm open to discussion on that.
What was your number?
The agency high.
I had 175 even. That was my number. But I'm amendable to hearing the other committee members.
Back to tax. Department.
No, 178.4. for
178.4 for their high for, and that's what I picked was their high, line 18. So
One off.
oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, that was their, sorry, I didn't do that. So,
Why do I have 177?
yeah, so why don't we we'll take the new number, and I didn't have this number when I was doing my numbers, so I didn't get this till Friday.
I don't
So
have this, yeah.
how do we feel about taking the high point of 26 listed on the governor's sheet of 177.7?
I'm okay with that. I'm seeing, in the communities that I work with a lot of people in recovery, and there's definitely been a shift from cigarettes to vaping.
Mhm.
So I'm okay with that.
Kind of this is smokeless tobacco too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, I think my belief is that we're going to see better enforcement on the vape tax.
This will correlate into others, but I just think I think we're seeing less smoking. I think we're seeing less drinking. I'm just concerned it's going to continue to go down, even with how advantageous it is to purchase in this state. So I was at 175, but if the committee wants a higher number than that, perhaps you're seeing it more than I am.
So the motion's 177.7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Take that number. And then have the same number for, 177.7 for the same number for 27.
So you held it even.
I held it, yeah, I didn't increase it. I just left it static.
I'd rather be more in the middle on that. I think that's towards the higher end of estimates.
So again, the idea being that the enforcement of the tax is going to generate, not that there's an increase in consumption, however, we're going to be able to be more, deal with the enforcement of the tax collection. And so I don't see why it would go down based on that.
But who's going to be enforcing it? I mean,
I
we have
understand.
to deal with that in finance.
So again, we'll deal with that in finance, but again, remember, our revenues are based, liquor enforcement still exists right now.
Well, yeah.
So,
I think that local law enforcement's gonna be busy.
well, again, they wouldn't, even if local law enforcement wouldn't be involved in the collection of a tax. So 177.7. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it, 177.7. Moving on to the interest and dividends tax. We need an estimate for 25. The house was at 89.4. The agency is higher than that. They're at 894.5 and 105. Remembering this is the last year we're collecting it. I was on the high end of the agency number and I had 104 for interest and dividends. What I had.
I had 103.
I had 100.
Senator Murphy, Senator Sullivan want to weigh in? 103. Senator Sullivan, any comment on interest and dividends?
No.
Okay. So how about we use 103? All those in favor of 103, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. So 103. My recommendation is we take the House's position on both 26 and 27 on this with 8.7 million in 26 and 0 in 27. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to communications tax, which is line G, row G in your guide. The last one on the sheet. Here. So the house was at 29.5. We're doing 25 again. The house was at 29.5. The agency's low is 28 and the high is 30 for 25. I'll be honest, I had, I didn't take a position on this one. 29
29.1.
Sure. All in favor of 29.1, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Moving on to 26. The house was at 29.1. The agency's 27.8 to 30. Do you guys just want to level fund this at 29.1 again?
So I just have a question. I don't remember it being stated in the hearing. So where is the negative 3% coming from? We're seeing a decline in
Say that again?
for the communications and service tax at the fiscal year 2026. It says negative 3%,
Some people still drop landlines. They
and
don't
that's
just,
where it's coming from. Okay.
I'm fine with the 29 even you said.
just level funding it, 29.1 like we were at the previous year. All those in favor of 29.1, say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to 27. I actually had lowered the number, but I had my number. I did do this one for some reason, but I'd be okay with again level funding because we're seeing a reduction, but also an uptick in some other areas. So I think 29.1 is a reasonable number. All in favor of 29.1, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. 29.1. Moving on to the real estate transfer tax. Which is going to be line H on your sheet. So the house's estimate for 25 was 215. The agency low is 201 with a high of 205. I'll be honest, I was at 204 for 25.
You were at the high
I was just below the high. Finish it out.
for 25.
What was your number, Mr. Chair?
Mine was 204 even.
I had 203.
So who's in 202.5 being the number? All those in favor of 202.5, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Moving on to 26. The house number was 210. They had a slight uptick of roughly $10 million, a little bit more than that. The agency is 207 to 222. Again, remember, I was up towards closer to the top, so my number was 218, a little more optimistic. I think that as interest rates come down, housing prices are going to change. And if you believe in the moves we're doing in the Senate and the House on housing, that'll also spur growth as well.
I just
So-
don't think it's gonna spur growth that quickly.
I'm sorry?
I don't think it's going to spur growth that quickly. So that's my concern.
A lot of the bills actually do affect.
I was at 210.
You're at 210.
I don't know what everyone.
Any other number?
I mean, I feel like it takes at least 2 years to get anything built. So if we pass stuff, it's just not going to take, I don't think it's going to impact until 27 at the earliest.
So I'd like to go 212. I think I'm a little more optimistic. It's not as high as my original number, but it's a little bit, I'm trying to compromise a little bit. 212. All in favor of 212, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Moving on to 27. The House was at 222 on this, and the agency was 213 to 241.
Huge difference.
So again, my number was 236, but I was a little higher on the 26 number. So I understand if we want to come down a little bit based on what we estimated for 26. But what number would everybody like? Is there a
I was at 220. I was thinking the
Two-
low end.
two what?
220.
Was it 226?
so 224 being the number?
I was gonna say 224.
I would do 225 actually. You know.
What's it?
I would do 225.
225?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of 225, say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Next up is the utility property tax. Find it on my sheet. Was on the last page of the handout, it's row O.
Small numbers.
There's so little difference.
Let me see if I had any difference on this one.
Could do 48 even across.
So the House was at 45.2. The agency's number is higher than that for 25, 47.6 and 49, and 49. My estimate for 25, which I didn't do. So I would come in between the House and I would come in between the agency's high and low at 48.
Yep.
All in favor of 48, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, 48's the number. Moving on to 26 number, the agency's gap is again 47.6 and 50.5. I'd support 49, given the
48.5.
48.5 is what you were at.
I can do that.
49.
I had 48, so splits the baby.
48.5. All in favor of 48.5, say aye.
Aye. And that's a terrible,
All
terrible.
those opposed, say no. For 26, the number is 48.5.
You try to have the wisdom of Solomon.
Moving on to 27, the agency's number was again 47.6 and 52.0. The one thing I'll remind everybody is one of the functions of the utility property tax is valuation, right? So as the economy grows and has assets increase in value for the purposes of taxation, that's why we're seeing the increase in the numbers. And on top of that, through all of this, we have the utility companies doing improvements on their work. So building new substations to have different values that, for this. So that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the growth in this number. It's not necessarily there are new assets being added, but they're being revalued. They're either being valued at a higher rate, or they've revamped them, and therefore they increase in their value rate because they've redone a substation or something like that. So, so our previous number was 48.5. The agency's gap is 47.6 and 52. I'd support 51.
I was at 49.5.
That was
So-
50.
I was at 50.
50 it is.
All those in favor of 50 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Utility property tax is taken care of. I propose we just do 363.1 for all of SWEPT. Any opposition? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. 363.1 is the number for all 3 years.
Chair, in 25, you'll want to make it 364.4. That is what was collected.
364.
So I'd entertain up for a 25 for SWEPT, the number to be 364.4. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. So we have 364.4, 363.1, 363.1 for those years. All right, we'll go back to the beginning of the sheet. We'll look at column. We did see liquor transfer. Where we at here? So column D, the 101.7 was the house's estimate, and that's consistent through all the agency high and the agency low. I move we adopt 101.7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. 101.7 is the number for 25. For 26, the House had same thing. The House is at 102.9. The agency's high and low 102.9. I move we adopt 102.9. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have her at 102.9. For 27, so this is where I'm gonna have a slight deviance, I believe, from the conversation. I actually think the numbers are gonna go up in the conversations with liquors, and it's more not necessarily relative directly to alcohol, but to the ancillary things they're doing as they get more into the mocktails, which is what they're gonna be offering in the stores, which is what the non-drinking population is moving to. The virgin daiquiris and the virgin margaritas and those kind of drinks. So the lack of a phrase, the simulation drinks. They have alcohol-free gin. Don't know how that works, but they do have it. It tastes like gin, but it doesn't have any alcohol in it. But we see the agency moving more towards providing those things in the store for families, for people that are coming in and buying both alcohol for one part of the family and the other thing. So I had deviated and I put 104.2 as my number. From that, acknowledging that the changes they're making in that compared to the agency's number of 102.3.
And they're
So-
also really embracing online sales and getting into that
Right.
market, so.
Mocktails do you offer, Senator Murphy?
I've got several on my menu.
So
I have a question. What do we know about the difference in profit margins between the alcohol they sell and the mocktails?
my,
Because they're
understa-
going to have to take shelf space.
yeah, my
away from
understanding is the mocktails are higher. Profit lines are higher.
Is that
I don't know,
True.
Senator Murphy knows.
The margin is higher with cocktails, with mocktails. One concern I have is that, for liquor, they've got to go to the liquor store.
Mhm.
Clearly. right?
They what?
They've got to go to the liquor store.
Yeah.
If you want a bottle of gin in the state, there's only one way to buy it legally.
Mhm.
But mocktails, there's no reason why anybody can't go to the grocery store and buy that there too. So they're going to face more competition
Mhm.
for mocktails than they do for their other product. I have seen in the younger generations just a catastrophic drop off. It's hard to be upset with people for not drinking as much, right? I mean, it's good from a health perspective, but I am very concerned that the revenues the state derives from alcohol consumption is going to not recover anytime soon. So I had the agency number, and I think that might be optimistic.
Again, I viewed it as an additive, not a subtracting. While using their number as a base, recognizing there's actually a decline, right? Where the previous year was 102.9, but they're going down to 102.3 in the next year is their number. I just think that the addition of mocktails are going to just be an additive function. People going in again, the buying the alcohol, because like to Senator Murphy's point, you have to go to the liquor store if you want to buy gin, right? But there may also be people in that household or the party you're throwing that also want to be able to have a non-alcoholic version of the same thing. And they're going to, while they're in the store, they're going to buy both, right? They're going to buy the gin for the people who want to have alcohol. They're going to buy the mocktail for that. So I viewed it as an additive function, not a diminishing function from their base number. So basically what I'm saying is I think they're going to sell roughly $1.1 million in mocktails for it through the stores.
Your number, Mr. Chairman?
So my number is 104.2. So I'm sorry, so 1.9 million dollars. Yeah, is my additive.
Was what?
So liquor transfer is currently at 102.3 is the agency's recommendation, which is a reduction over the previous year. I think that we're going to be additive to the 102.9, and we're going to add and go to 104.2 for the mocktail additions in the agencies.
So, I don't think we're going to be flat, but I think there are two other things going on. One is, we've heard from the commission that people are buying less expensive brands. And I've also heard from the commission that there's less on-premises alcohol, and maybe that's not true, but what I've heard is, okay. And I think it's because the food has gotten so expensive.
That is the point. Yeah.
So I'd be willing to go up over the 102.9, but
How about we 103.5? Does that meet everyone? There's a slight reduction to take into account the addition of these products. Again, the one thing I'd say is we're in talking this conversation, they've done a phenomenal job at marketing. These ghost drops they do on Tuesdays are selling out, right? And that's the higher end liquor that they're doing, where they put it out, they put it on a limited supply on a certain day, and you got to show up and buy it. Those things are selling out across the board in the state liquor stores. And I think people are still buying the higher end liquors, but they're marketing very well.
And they're probably lasting longer because they cost more, so they're not drinking
right,
as much.
not drinking
But I
that.
do agree with my colleague, going out to dinner, that is a consideration. Dropping down to one glass of wine instead of the two because of the price of the food.
So can we agree on 103.5?
I can.
All those in favor of 103.5 say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to the next column we haven't addressed yet. Court fees.
Senator, you skipped over the insurance tax, which was on that same
Sorry.
page.
Insurance tax. If you remember right on the insurance tax, the agency came in with some increased numbers. My recommendation on all 3 years to accept the agency's high number. 174 for 25, 165 for year for 26, and 168 for year 7.
I agree with that.
Any objection? All those in favor? So, so it's taking the high number of the agency. So 174 in 25, 165 in 26, and 168. And those the agency came in and gave us those increased revenue numbers.
And they're high and lows in this theme.
Yeah, that's right. So all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. We've adopted 174 for 25, 165 for 26, and 168 for 27. Sorry. Next. We did those. Okay, court fees, row I. We didn't hear from them. Chris, do you have any comments on that?
So I reached out to the courts and they didn't have any change from what they provided the House in terms of their estimates. And so that's why you see the 13.6 in 2025, 13.7 in 26 and 27.
So my recommendation is take the agency's number for each of the years, so 13.6 and 25, 13.7 and 26, and 13.7 and 27. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. And we have 13.6 for 25, 13.7 for 26, and 13.7 for 27. Moving on to securities revenue. Chris, you want to talk to us about that?
So security is a similar issue where they were reached out to see if there was any changes to their estimates, and they stood by what they provided to the House, which is the 44.3 and 25, the 44.4 and 26, and the 44.5 million in 27. They didn't see any need to change those estimates.
Okay, well,
I move we accept the agency's recommendation of 44.3 for 25, 44.4 for 26, and 44.5 for 27. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Those numbers are adopted. Moving on to the beer tax. Again, we're in a similar situation. There was a slight, the numbers were provided. There was no change to the numbers. I move we accept the agency high estimate of 12.5 for 25, 13 for 26, and 13 for 27. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We've adopted 12.5 for 25, 13 for 26, and 13 for 27. Moving on to the other fund. Chris, you're going to talk about this. Can we remember this is the fund that has 200 and something different revenue streams
That's
that flow
correct.
into it.
So-
And the biggest one we heard from that goes into this is from the treasurer, and she had upped her numbers by $10 million for her portion of this other fund.
So the Department of Administrative Services is the primary collector of all this revenue, and I did reach out to them, or Sonia actually reached out to them to find out if they had any adjustments. Similar to the treasurer, they have adjustments in fiscal year 25, and that's why you end up with a number that's 160 million compared to where the House was at 150.5. So it's like a $9.5 million uptick in 25. The 26 and 27, the treasurer's numbers as well as the Department of Administrative Services numbers did not adjust at all. They left them as they had provided them for the House. They didn't see any need to make any adjustments at this point.
So I move we adopt the agency high number of 160 for 25, 126 for 26, and 120 for 27. Is there any further discussion?
120.
120 for the last one. Yep, taking all the agency numbers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. I'm going to skip over lottery because there'll be a little bit bigger discussion. We'll come back to that one. We'll move to line N, the tobacco settlement fund. All those numbers are identical with the exception of the 25 number. The House originally estimated 35.5. The agency came in and said, no, we're actually going to get 37.7 on the settlement. So I'd move the agency numbers of 37.7, 32.5, and 30 for 27. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We did sweat. Medicaid recoveries, the last column. You?
The agency always underestimates a little bit,
Yes, I increased my numbers from there.
but it's like by a couple 100,000.
Right. So for 25, on line Q, the House had adopted 2.2. The agency is sitting at 2.2. The actuals were a little higher. But I'd move that we adopt for 25, the 2.2 number. They have different numbers for the rest. All in favor of the 2.2 number for 25, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. For 26, I actually just had a $100,000 increase in that. I had 30.2, and that was based on actuals, because they always come in a little higher and they always underestimate. And so I want to put it more in a line, so my number was 3.2. All in favor of 3.2 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. And then I did the same thing for 27. I have 3.2.
Yeah.
All those in favor of 3.2 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Going back to lottery. On row M. So you have a couple spreadsheets in front of you that I handed out. You want to talk about them because I found an error in Charlie's numbers, which doesn't happen very often. I'm missing my other sheet. So if you look at, where is it?
I only have one.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I don't have, it's right beside you.
This one.
Son, can I have that Charlie sheet? No. No. I'll look at Cindy's. I didn't write, for some reason I must have left it in my office.
Yeah.
So the line I want to talk about is the one that says HHR, Historic Horse Racing. And if you take the HHR and you look at this sheet that's provided, and the first column that says 26, third column over. So understand that this number's been a moving target for HHR machines, because in February, we had 1,900 machines in the state. In March, or in April, we had 4,400 machines in the state. By June, we expect to have 49, because another facility open in June in Salem. So 4,900 machines is the number we have to base our revenue off of. So if you look at the HHR line for Charlie, he has $40 million. However, based on 4,900 machines, if you look at that column 26, the actual revenue is $66 million, $66.8 million. So there's a $26.8 million gap in the revenue and what Charlie presented. And I'm not blaming him because, again, those numbers have been moving pretty dramatically in a very short period of time as facilities have opened or expanded. And so what I want to do is increase Charlie's number by $26.8 million to do the actual revenues that we predict are coming in. So the new number in lottery would be 220.3. And
All
for,
26.
yes, for all of lottery, right? If you add the $26.8 million, that is the gap between the facility, the new total number of machines, and that'll be in place in June, and know that that's going to be the machines going forward. The gap is $26.8 million.
There is an assumption here that in adding these additional machines isn't going to change the daily revenue. They're all going to continue to pull in an average of 230 a day, right?
So I will say, when Charlie gave us the per machine revenue, he averages that number and he takes out the high and the low to deal with the person who's doing really poorly and the person that's doing phenomenally, so we get a real mix of what's in the middle. And the 23.3 has been, actually, it's estimated low, in all honesty. The real number is closer to $280 per machine. So we're assuming 230 in this budget. So that's, so my number for lottery was, what was it again? Sorry. 220.3 based on adding these, the real math that can be calculated. And doing it conservatively, like I said, the estimated number was around 280, but we're actually using 230 to figure our math out and to budget under.
So is the house 180 for fiscal year 25? Is that what I'm saying?
The house in the, so for 25, I I'm gonna just accept their number of 200, but going forward, the house was at 172.9
For 26.
for 26, and that's what I'm talking about is
Okay, so you're
26.
talking about 26 and 27.
No, I'll move that we accept the house number for 25. I don't have any reason, I think it's gonna be higher, but slightly higher, but I think it's a reasonable number to
So
budget.
you're
for.
moving 180 for 25.
I'm moving 200, the agency estimate
Oh, okay.
for 25. And then for 26, I want to add the $26.8 million. So the new number is 220.3.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question on the draw-based games. Do we have the lottery commission here?
It is not here.
Oh, okay. I just noticed that Mega Millions, they changed the purchase price from $2 to $5. And I was just wondering if that was going to have it, if that was going to affect the draw-based games at all, if people are buying less or if it stayed the same.
Charlie, when my last conversation with that, and we talked about the $5 increase, my weekly pick price went up. So,
I only do if the jackpot's big.
but he didn't indicate there was any difference.
Okay,
They had a little technical glitch when they did it, but other than that, they don't anticipate any change.
okay, thank
And they
you.
also added the multiplier, which is the differential.
Okay,
They added.
It's called the multiplier.
Oh.
There are many jokes I can make about the lottery commission not being good at math. But did we speak to Charlie about these numbers?
Yes,
And
yes,
he's
yeah,
endorsed it?
he understands what the numbers are and he realizes what the numbers should be,
okay,
so.
okay.
And then for 2027, again, I'm gonna assume 220.3. So the numbers are 200 for 25, 220.3 for 26, and 220.3 for 27. Any further discussion?
So
Um,
26 and 27 are fine.
Yes.
I feel like that's in the very high end, in my personal opinion. Just about how our estimates on everything else we've been going on. I wish I shared your optimism. And I understand what Senator Murphy said as well, is like, we're adding more machines, but is that going to continue is that going to increase the revenue? More people going to show up and start gambling more. I'd be more comfortable on the lower end, but I'd like to hear the committee if they share my concerns or if I'm just out here in left field.
Thank you. It seems like adding more machines is gonna cannibalize their business from existing places. So maybe if I'm in Salem, I don't travel to Nashua or Manchester. So this feels like a big jump to me. I could probably easily get to 215. But
Yeah, I just did it based on math. I ran out the math numbers we've been using for all of our calculations, both in the House and the Senate, and the estimates that we're using as it came to revenue. And the math shows it's $26.6 million more, based on just the industry growth, not minding there's still 2 more casinos yet to open that are potentially in the works, so. But I'm not counting them in any of this calculation. I'm just doing the actual numbers we know about for open lottery. So I guess and we're being conservative in the estimate per machine to boot, on the low side. And last thing I'll say is when I went to the opening of the Nash and I went down for the 5-year sports betting anniversary, 75% of all the cars in the parking lot are not from New Hampshire.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we're now competing with the casinos in Rhode Island and Connecticut, and people on this half of the state are gonna choose New Hampshire.
So let's take up the first number. We'll take up 2025 with the 200 as the number. All in favor of 200, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. We have 200. Moving on to 26. Again, I did the math out and it's 220.3. I entertain discussions otherwise, but that's just simple math for me, based on their number and then the correction of calculation. Because their number is based off that calculation too, just they missed the new machines.
I'm not a gambler, and I will defer to those that are. And I'm assuaged somewhat, my concerns are assuaged somewhat by the fact that Charlie McIntyre has endorsed these numbers.
Mhm.
So if he says it's gonna be 220, I'll go with 220.
Any further discussion? So vote on the number of 220.3. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. And the same number for 2027, 220.3. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Chris, what do we miss?
So you have all your general fund and education trust fund revenues done. You need to do the highway fund and the fish and game fund, which are the last
Thank you
couple of
very much.
pages.
We're turning to page 8. So on the road, we'll take up road tolls, column A. So the House came in at 127.7 for 25. The agency's estimate is the exact same number. I move we adopt the House and agency number for 25. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And I'll make this easier. I move we do the same thing for 26 and 27 for road tolls. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. We've adopted the House number for road tolls. Miscellaneous, again, same thing. The House and the agency were on par. Is there any discussion why we should change those numbers? All those in favor of adopting the House and agency number signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Moving over to motor vehicle fees. Again, across the board, while the governor was higher in all but the last, in 27, I'd make a motion, we adopt the House estimate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We're moving on to fish and game. So there was slight, again, the House and the, across the board seemed to be consistent. Everybody was consistent. So for fishing game licenses, I move we adopt the governor's number, which happens to be the same as the House number, which happens to be the same as the agency number, but we'll give her credit for it. All those in favor say, for all 3 years. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Moving over to column B, the all other. There's a slight difference between the governor and the House to the positive in 25. I move we adopt the House estimate on all 3 years of 4.1, 4, and 4. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We adopted all 4. Chris?
So you've done all your work here today. So what'll happen at this point is that for the budget, the estimated revenues you've come up with today, we'll do an amendment to House Bill 1 unrestricted revenues that will be offered in Senator Lang's name as the Ways and Means Committee. If there's any other revenue adjustments as it relates to changes that might occur in House Bill 2 or in other bills, that would be taken care of on a surplus statement. For this committee and for others who are interested, the worksheet, I will complete that so it's up to date with what your decisions were today. There'll be a second one that will show you the education trust fund split from the general fund. So it just will have the same format, same information. It'll just show you how much is going to the education trust fund versus the general fund. And then we'll do the comparison sheets to show you, how you stand against the governor and the House in terms of their revenue estimates. And I'll email those to the members when I have those completed.
Is there anything else to come before the committee? I just want to say, I think I made it clear, I'm a little more optimistic apparently than everybody else. I guess I'm just a happy guy and I think everything's rosy. But again, I do think that between the things with the tariffs that's going on, that'll settle out by the end of this year. And we've been seeing a normalizing, what I consider a normalizing. We've been so blessed with some really big numbers in the previous years, and $500 million surpluses, $250 million surpluses, that when we actually get to a budgeting year, that everything's kind of normal now. We don't have influx of COVID dollars and all of those things happening. And on top of that, we got whacked with the normalization year and a high inflation, coming off of a high inflation year. That I tend to think that going forward, those things have all been normalized now. We're going to see just our normal standardized growth between 2% and 6% in that range across the board, depending on your sector. And so I hope that that happens and we'll give our numbers to finance and see where they go.
I hope you're right.
Yes, I proceeded cautiously, but I will celebrate with you if you are correct.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else to come before the House, the Senate Ways and Means Committee? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Everyone needs to go, can go put their crystal ball down.